folks who don't know, the Free State Project is a movement of voluntary human action where we are trying to concentrate libertarians in the state of New Hampshire.
I think we've done more in the last decade than every other libertarian movement combined has accomplished in the last 5 decades.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, libertarians, anarchists, movers, natives, and those on your way, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Free State Live, where you get to hear about all the ways you can live free and thrive in the free state of New Hampshire. First and foremost, time to welcome everyone back. I'm Justin O'Donnell, former Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate and author of Live Free and Thrive, 101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, and so should you. And joining me tonight, as always, we have Manchester's favorite family man and keyboard warrior extraordinaire, Kevin from the internet. How's it going, Kevin?
Good. I've been busy lately, so I've been lazy on the keyboard warrior part of that. But
You've been busy off the internet?
Yes.
I thought you were from the internet.
I've transcended the internet now. It's a meme come to life. It's a nightmare.
One of our favorite memes, perennial candidate Queen Quill herself, Carla Garrick, is also back in the house. How are you, Carla?
Hi, I am great as always.
Fresh off your steam from NBC?
Yes. So I did want to say one thing in case people have not seen this before. There is this NBC series that is out. It is actually really great. I think it's fair and balanced. I think they're doing a pretty good job. And episode 11, the last episode of season 1, because I'm going to make sure we get to, came out. And they had this little clip with Sununu. And he said the following words: I would describe myself as a small L libertarian, and I certainly did pause my player. And I was like, regardless of how good his definition is, the fact that we're in New Hampshire and the governor of New Hampshire is talking about big L, small L libertarian is massive, massive for our movement.
Yeah, we've at least permeated the culture enough that people are aware of our inside lingo at this point.
Yeah, they're speaking our language, if we're going to put it the way I would put it.
Yeah. And well, it's a great thing they're speaking our language because we're getting more and more people moving all the time, and they're landing somewhere where they're right at home and people can understand them. And tonight we do have another fascinating mover story. It's been a while since we've had a new mover story, but tonight we have someone who's escaped all the way from California, landed in the Free State, Brandon Stevens. Brandon, how are you today?
Doing great. How's everybody?
Hey, good.
So,
yeah,
let's start off the bat. Here's the interesting one. How the heck did you end up here from California, and what drove you to run away from Gavin Newsom's little earthquake-ridden hellhole to land in the Free State of New Hampshire?
Well, I mean, you summed it up pretty well. I'll try to top that. It really is kind of like a journey. I heard about the Free State Project thing in the 2019-ish. I'm like, what is this? And my wife and I, just after that, in early 2020, had to deal with COVID. And it's like, you know what? We need to get the heck out of here because things are just going crazy. And we weren't even in a bad part of Southern California. And things were kind of nuts. Like, it's out there when you have clients that are like, we don't know if we're going to be in business. And then all of a sudden your family's like, we need to get out of here and go somewhere else. So we started looking at Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and also parts of Tennessee. And then New Hampshire came up. And I'm like, you know what? We should probably look into this more. And started looking into what the tax environment was like, started looking into what the culture was like. And we actually came out for a visit a year ago and got to meet some of the people, went to Murphy's Tap Room. I think that was the first time I maybe have met both of you guys. Carla, I don't think you were there at that time, but Kevin was, because he always shows up to internet people things.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we got a feel for it. We met up with a local realtor, a gentleman by the name of Zach. He's a pretty cool guy. He helped us out. And we decided this is where we want to make home.
Nice. Oh my goodness, it makes me so happy. Everyone knows I'll just go on, but I will try not to. So you said in passing you heard about New Hampshire, or New Hampshire came up. Do you kind of remember what that was? Like, sort of what was your point of entry? Because for most of us who've been doing this a long time, I'm really curious to sort of understand where people are hearing.
It was through the Free State Project itself. I came across the website, and then I found that there was a Discord server and also a calendar of events. And I started looking at those things and said, you know what, maybe I should learn more. And just started conversing with people that had moved here, started looking at the events that were going on. And a lot of it really aligned with what we wanted to do, the kind of people we wanted to hang out with, and the kind of people we wanted our family to be around. And it seemed like a nice cult. Like, you ever know how like puzzle pieces culturally things fit or don't fit? It didn't feel like they fit where we were in California. It really felt like things lined up well here. You know, we've made some great friends ourselves. Our daughter has just made some awesome friends, and she just has so much fun here at all the places to go. And it's, you know, sure, we miss California, but it was, getting back to your question, sorry. You know, finding out about it through, like, I think I was on Facebook on the time. It was before I pulled the ripcord on Facebook and said, I need to get off of here. I saw some posts on Twitter, and I'd never used Twitter before last year. And just seeing some of the very based posts about, hey, we're changing things here. The environment is changing politically, culturally, and it seemed to be going in the right direction.
I think COVID was probably a big factor at the time too, which is like Free Staters were doing our own thing, Pork Fest. I mean, we just kind of marched on and was like, all right, sure, good luck with all your lockdowns, dude. Like, good luck with that. Whereas California, New York, Massachusetts were going in the opposite direction with a lot of that stuff. So I think I think you mentioned Tennessee and Texas and Florida, and I think though New Hampshire was an oddball that popped up in a lot of like the social circles because the media was talking so much about Texas and Florida, and Tennessee was on that list as well. And they have a pretty good Twitter account, but they're not doing what we're doing here. And you know, I think that drew a lot of people to those states, but New Hampshire ended up pulling libertarians out of that movement, and that's where I think you, like you said, the cultural thing, that puzzle piece that fits is, you know, if you were conservative, I tell people like, yeah, go to Texas. You can go love Ron DeSantis or do whatever you do in Texas with alligators. But if
That's Florida, I think.
I don't know. They're all the same to me. I consider Massachusetts the South. So to me, it all ends there, dude. But I think that was a big draw for a lot of people during that COVID time. Was like, we pulled a lot of people, and a lot of people found us just because, like you said, the events calendar, what we were actually doing in practice was just so different, you know.
Yeah, I love that you use that word practice, because I don't know if you guys saw it, and if you didn't, definitely go find it. But Jeffrey Tucker, I saw you have anarchist midwit there. So, you know, I would say Jeff's probably anarchist PhD, fancy bow tie type, you know, but he wrote this incredible essay just recently that came out. And I think it was called Eggheads versus Doers. And he basically lauds the Free State Project. And he's like, you know, when people started with this thing, I wasn't sure, but these guys are the people who are doing it in practice. And, you know, when you guys throw around the words based, I think I'm probably too old to pull that off. But the idea is, you know, if there's this clarion call, I like to think that based actually kind of means doer, like someone who's actually willing to take action. I don't even know, actually, we'll leave it at that. But but if you guys haven't read that article, I highly recommend you do it. So Brandon, when you and your wife, and it sounds like you guys have kids, were sort of deciding, talk us through, just for new people, like kind of what was your process? Did you guys pick a place first?
Yeah. So I wish it was that simple and that concise. If you've had, you know, any conversation with realtors here, you know what the housing market is like. It's a little crazy. It's a little small, but really hoping for some growth and expansion. Our process was, I wish I could say it was simple, but it is never easy. And I'll tell other people too that have asked questions about, like, you know, what was it like moving and uprooting? It's never easy. It really is an involved process. Whether you're even a renter or you're selling a home, it's doubly challenging, because not only do you have to find somebody that will take your place, you got to line up where you're going to land. And I think the best advice there is like, line up where you're landing before you like hit the eject button where you are. Make sure that your job is going to be good with you going. If you can work remote, if not, make sure you have something lined up. Make sure you have a housing option. I got super lucky on that front. Like, we had closed on our old home and everything, and we had like 2.5 months before our new home that we bought here was done. So I had to rent a place from a Free Stater, and it was awesome. And he was super cool about everything. Like, I was able to, work out very, very good payment terms and all that stuff. I got to use the address to move everything over, but the process, it is a process. Like, you want to make sure you have housing lined up, your income is lined up, that your stuff is going to get here. Like, that was the biggest concern. Like, you put a whole house in a container. Is it going to show up? Is it not going to show up? And then it shows up.
Or it's going to show up and you're going to get blackmailed to get it off the truck, because that actually has happened.
That happened to a friend of mine when they moved from California to Colorado. They got blackmailed by the moving company. They doubled the shipping charge. It was like $8,000 and they doubled it to $16,000. And they said, do you want your stuff or do you not want your stuff? But thankfully, we did not have that experience.
Awesome.
We used, like, there's pods, there's like X shipping, there's, I don't know, there's a few of them. I looked at so many, my eyes bled. But you can find a good deal if you're flexible on timeline. And that's the important thing, is being flexible on your timeline, because things are going to happen. You're not going to be able to account for every scenario. And I tell people this too. It's like, when you make a big move like that across the country and it feels right, that tells you made the right decision. Like, moving here, getting into the community, getting all of our stuff, getting unpacked. And the mover crew, I really have to shout out Chris Lopez and the mover crew. They had our stuff unpacked in like 40 minutes flat. I didn't even get back with pizza and beer, and the container was empty, and they're standing around like, hey boss, what do you want us to do next? And I'm like, I don't know, like, take a nap, like 5 minutes here, have some pizza, beer. The whole moving crew is awesome. And but that's what you have to look forward to, is when you get here, you're welcomed with open arms, and people just bend over backwards to help you out and make you feel like you are home.
It's easy to get plugged into the community. Like, wherever you land in the state, there is a group of porcupines somewhere, or if you're in Manchester or Seacoast, some of those concentrate areas, or if you have the Quill, or if you have the Shell or somewhere to kind of congregate, it makes it even easier. But like you said, with the calendar, and everybody is very open arms when you come out here. It's a very interesting, different community. Even me as a native, like New Hampshire people, so I know someone who says like they're like natives are polite but shy, and it's a fairly true statement. But again, me walking around to Free State events, I'm a social butterfly, and it's very easy to be a social butterfly, because again, everybody's, hey, what's going on? What are you up to? Like, very find your niche within the movement. And I think coming from California or wherever you are, it's very easy to plug yourself into some of those events, make some friends, and kind of get yourself going. I'll see, there's Chris right now. Always in the mix, Chris Lopez. So what else have you gotten up to now that you've been here in New Hampshire? I think I was at an event with you. We went out shooting, and I had never seen a California compliant gun before. Because again, I'm a native.
Was it a pea shooter?
I was so fascinated. I was like, you have to do what? Like, I just had I'm like, this is so unfamiliar to me, dude. Like, I wouldn't have even bought one. It wouldn't have been worth it. Like, I can go to Home Depot and get this.
I can throw it really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you mentioned the shooting events. That's something that I find very interesting out here. Is the gun culture is very different, and it's a relief for me, coming from a place that literally would throw you in prison if you happen to have more than 10 rounds in a magazine you bought after 2018. Gun culture is a big thing out here, and I love that there's ranges everywhere. There's undeveloped land that it's totally free and legal to go and shoot on. People have common use property, and they just got to post if shooting is allowed or not. And it's wonderful, like, to just be able to say, oh, hey, if I feel like open carrying today, cool, I could do that. Yeah, if I want to conceal carry, all right, cool, you could do that too. And there's a very different like perception around it too. People see a gun and they don't have a panic attack. They just go, oh, hey, what do you got there?
Yeah.
That looks a little different. It's a little shiny. What is that? Oh, what's that little red thingy on there? It tells you if it's loaded. That's kind of dumb, like stuff like that. But yeah, just be glad I didn't bring out my old ARs that were like California compliant. They had to be like break top and no removable magazine. That's the first thing I did is throw all that crap in the trash and like switch it over to normal.
Even my family in Massachusetts, like during the Obama administration, when it was gun control, like I had family just started buying left and right. I got to buy a new AR, got to buy a new gun. They're going to ban guns. They're going to ban guns to the point where like I have family members who just have safes in their garages like with more guns than they know what to do with. And like at this point, they've reached out to me. They realize, oh well, they're not actually going to ban guns. They don't have the balls to follow through with on that. It's like, hey, do you know anybody who'd be interested in buying any of these off me? I'm like, no, they're all mass compliant.
Yeah.
He's like, I paid $1,200 for this. I'm like, I'll give you $200 for parts.
Yeah. Thankfully, you can convert and save a lot of those, so that's pretty cool. But I mean, guns aren't the only thing here. I really, like I mentioned, some of the family events, farmers markets. Oh, I was so surprised to see that there is a whole calendar of farmers markets posted and available in I forget where exactly, but literally every small township has a farmers market at least twice a week until like mid-October, which was really nice because if you want like farm fresh food, eggs, being able to go down the street a mile and buy eggs from my neighbor for $3 and then send a picture of how much I paid to my coworkers in California. They're paying like $6 a dozen. I'm not trying to flex on them. I'm just telling them I got a better product. That's all. It's amazing. Like, and then shout out to Bardo Farms and Duck and those guys there. They always have fantastic quality foods too. And just I think that's just it. The quality of food that you can get here just from your neighbors, from your local community. Heck, you could grow it yourself if you got enough land, and almost everybody has enough land if they've got a single family home. It's amazing. And that's something we really look forward to is a part of that self-sustainability portion. And not to say that I'm an eco-friendly weenie, but I mean, it's definitely one of those things
like
where
nature.
You want to be,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you want to be conscious of what it is that you're producing and consuming, and having animals like chickens and a garden and stuff just kind of gets you towards that neutral territory. And, it's like, there's nothing like having more pride in hey, I grew this myself. I made my own food. I have my own chickens. We got our own eggs, like that kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to that. And I've been told by a lot of people that like raising chickens and guinea fowl is a nice project for your kids too. So we'll try that.
Yes, or for, other people, because chickens are they're really fun. They're awesome. Highly recommend. It's like you have your own little small dinosaurs just running around the backyard. I mean, what's not to love?
Oh, and then you can 3D print those little T-Rex arms. My wife told me I have to start making those. So yeah.
That's awesome. So actually, as you were talking, it kind of struck me that in some ways, we've jokingly over the years said that we're kind of a refugee program at this stage, right? Like, I think that COVID really leaned into that sort of narrative and story more, where people were literally fleeing totalitarian regimes that were saying, we're going to dictate what you put on your mouth. We're going to dictate what you inject in your body. And actually, we're going to do that to your kids too, right? And so people fled that. And so when you were talking, it's almost like an immigrant story, but there's like a happy ending in the sense that there's actually like, instead of going into a concentration camp, you get to come to the best place in America, probably one of the best places on earth in terms of, hey, if, shit goes to hell in a handbasket, we will survive here. We've got water, we got land, and we got backyard dinosaurs, right? We're going to make it. We can eat. And we got Bardo. And so it's sort of exciting. As you were talking, I got really like jazzed, I guess, because it's like, well, it's like the refugee story, except there's this little community that's here to catch, to help, to not make it that frightening thing. You know, when I came to the States, I had 2 suitcases and $7,000. I didn't know one person in America, you know, like, and it's like, well, it's a lot easier as people come. So do you have like pet passions? Obviously, guns, sustainability. Like, if you were to get wrapped up in some of the activism, where do you feel passionate?
I mean, it's I'll be honest, it's been overwhelming in that regards. Like, I've got my hobbies that I've always had. Like, one thing that really attracted me to being closer to the lakes region is Laconia, and Laconia Motorcycle Week is a big event. And I have an older friend who lived here about 14 years ago, and he got to tell me like, oh, it was so great. We'd go to Laconia and just do all sorts of crazy stuff, and there's all sorts of shenanigans. I'm not going to elaborate. You guys probably know better than me. But you know, that was a big part of it, and I've always been really involved in like motorcycle community stuff. Like, California motorcycle community is huge. You get about 300 days a year that you can ride. So it's been a little bit of a shock for me, because riding season stopped like October 15th, and you pack your stuff away, and I'm like, well, I cried a little, honestly. So that's one thing. But there immediately, like, my first new movers potluck, there's guys like, oh, you like motorcycles? Let's invite you to the riders group. And I'm like, sweet, when's the next one? They're like, May 4th. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm going to reserve it now, you know.
And also, snowmobiling's fun. I mean, it's also got a nice charm to it. If you're into that kind of speed, I recommend. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's something that I see, like signs, because there's train tracks nearby here. Bright orange signs they put out that have no snowmobile access, and I'm like, but that's the best place to go because it's a straight line, you know. But that's one thing. Aside from that, like, I'm pretty much a workaholic. I have my own business that I run on the side, and it's been very accommodating being out here, having some time zone advantage, because a lot of my clients are in California. So it lets me get a leg up on making sure they're all taken care of before the workday starts for them, you know. Aside from that, it's just really, you know, spending time with the family, going out and doing stuff, and finding community events to go to. Like, I think the Fun Spot is like our favorite place to go to, and we made friends with another family like 20 minutes away, and we try to do fun stuff with them every so often too. They just had a kid a little bit ago too, so our daughter's like all in love with that. So, but I mean, it sounds very cheesy and corny that it's family focused, but I mean, we get to focus on what matters here, and I don't have to worry about, oh, what's the next crazy mandate coming down that's going to affect my kid's school, or, you know, put my clients out of work or some crap like that, you know.
Not a lot of that here. The overall tax burden, I'm sure, is a notable difference within a calendar year of kind of looking in the rearview mirror now, getting a chance to like kind of compare, or even something like down the street, you can just go buy eggs, or you can collect rainwater. No one cares. Like, California.
And I love the no sales tax portion too. That just, like, we bought because we moved into a new home. We sold everything when we left California. It's like, hey, guess what? Appliances are on sale at BJ's and they'll deliver it to your house. And I'm like, really? And we ended up getting like appliances without having to pay the state extortion fee. And it was just jaw dropping to be like, we saved how much money? Like, that's a big allure. And a lot of people don't realize how much that impacts their daily life, not having to pay that extortion every time you buy something or get gas, or, you know, buy a toy for your kid or something.
Well, I mean, the taxes thing, that's something I think a lot of people didn't really appreciate until COVID. Because, like, we've always talked about how we don't have sales tax and no income tax, and nobody really appreciated it until once COVID started forcing people to work from home, and people realized, oh, I don't need to live in Silicon Valley to work in Silicon Valley. I can live in Montana or New Hampshire or New Mexico. Once people didn't need to live in Boston to work in Boston, like, oh, I can telecommute from the North Country in New Hampshire just fine. All of a sudden, these states are like panicking about their lost revenue.
Yep.
And trying to tax people in other states. And that's like such a realization for so many people. Was like, oh, I can get a 15% raise on my annual salary just by moving to New Hampshire without even changing jobs. You're just going to take less from me and I'll be able to live better.
Yeah. It's definitely a big deal. And, you know, unfortunately, I'm still battling that out with California, because they always want their pound of flesh no matter what. But my tax guy was like super excited. He's like, dude, your taxes are going to be so easy. You're going to get so much money back. And I'm like, can you get me 0 so I don't have to pay anything? And he's like, we'll work on that. Don't worry. We got it.
Goals. I like it.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So now that you've been here, what's something that you weren't expecting that's different than you expected, or that maybe you weren't prepared for, that if you could go back and do things over, you'd prepare for or expect differently? For those who are looking to come, those who are in the shoes you were trying to make that move, what piece of advice would you give them having done it?
Ooh, man, that's a big one. We were kind of surprised by a few things coming out here. I mean, I guess really understanding what the true cost of moving is, and I'm talking more than dollars. I'm talking like how it's gonna separate you from your family. We had no idea that travel back to California to visit family the prices would double in the span of 6 months. That was unknown. Like we had budgeted to go visit like every 6 months or whatnot, and just something happened with all the airlines like 6-8 months ago. They started closing down, or something happened. I forgot exactly what.
All their pilots started dying.
Yeah.
Oh, well, some weird coincidence started happening.
It's a coincidence.
But that was an unexpected thing where we had anticipated, like we worked it out with our family, like, hey, we're going to go back and visit. We're going to set up these times. These are the when we want to visit you. And it really put a damper on that, and really made us realign our expectations in the sense of, okay, how often can we really go visit family? Maybe we should encourage them to come visit us. And then you remember that they live in a state where the cost of living is like 30% higher, and they probably don't have that thing called disposable income. So that puts some strain on familial relations, and it makes you reevaluate how you stay in contact with your family. So it's like, talking to your parents every week, whereas, when you're in your 30s, you may be talking once a month. I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at it. Sorry, Dad. But it's like now we just exchange memes every day from like 9 a.m. to noon, and we chat and stuff. But it changes the cadence and the type of communication with old friends and family. I try to stay in touch with, especially people who still live in our old parts of Southern California, and I lament with them on how bad things have gotten. I try to give them some copium and say, hey, there is a place where it's a little better, and if you come out here, you won't be alone. And try to prime it a little bit, like it's not a big state, and you won't be far, and we could be neighbors. Like, move into my town, maybe come visit. So I'm guilty of doing that. But that is probably the biggest one, is that expectation of how it's going to affect your family. Because some people, maybe they're lucky. I say lucky, but maybe they just don't have family nearby, or their family retired out of state a long time ago, and it's easy for them to pick up and move. But when you spend almost 40 years of your life in a place around the majority of your family, it's not easy to pull out and move across the country.
No, and it actually, in the true sense of the word, is a sacrifice. I think, it is, again, staying with the narrative. If things get really bad, then it's sort of like people are building a safe space somewhere. So that's one way to look at it, but also just start actively thinking about life hacks, right? Like you're like, oh, we do Sunday calls, and we just actually put Zoom on the computers and like eat at the same time. So everyone's kind of, or a brunch or something where you're actually like interacting like you would, like kind of normally, I guess. So there's like weird things you can do for that, but yeah, it's not easy. I mean, moving candidly is, it's in the top 5 crappiest things you can do in life, right?
Most
so
stressful.
It's a big ask.
Yeah.
And then the knowledge and knowing that ask is because you are building a better future for your children in a place that, I think we stand a pretty good chance of actually. I don't feel like it's getting much better anywhere else, but it's definitely getting better here. So, it's exciting when people come and they're like, we can do this, and we're gonna do it. We're doing it, actually, is the answer.
You also talked about like a great point about like how small New Hampshire is compared to just about everywhere else, and how close everyone is together. Like, I live 5 minutes from Carla, and I hate that drive. It's so far from me. Like, I am so spoiled growing up in New England, where like everything is conveniently right around the corner. I have another friend who did just move here from Los Angeles, and she moving up to the lakes. And I was joking, complaining, I'm like, I'm never going to see you. You're never going to be around.
Yeah.
Moving all the way to the lake. She's like, it's only an hour. I had
It's
to drive
wicked
farther
far.
than that to see friends
Only
in
an
Los
hour.
Angeles.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like from one end of town to the next.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for me, 5 minutes across the bridge is like, nah, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot to ask sometimes. But people who grew up in Los Angeles are familiar with like or had family on
Texas.
different sides of Texas.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a day trip. That's just a matter of course commute to drive an hour to see somebody. So in 2 hours you can get everywhere in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually, I did want to say one other thing is, of course, with the plane tickets, that's inflationary. I mean, that is sort of part of the narrative that we are, doing this for, right? And we're hedging as a community against the troubles we see ahead. And so with the plane tickets, I mean, it was the same thing for us. I was like, no, we rely on going places. And once the government gets their grubby little paws into everything, the airplane tickets, it's all of that is the market, it's inflation, it's money printing, it's the public health policies they put in, it was the mandatory jabs. I mean, all of that is also like, well, thanks, government, but no thanks.
Yeah, big part of that too, because my father-in-law wants to get his pilot's license. So I think we're having a conversation at one point, and I think it was in like 2018 or 2019. There were some changes to what was involved for instrument-rated pilots in terms of the amount of hours that they could actually be in the air and fly. And then the union or the Pilots Association basically almost tripled the amount of hours that were required to be certified. So, I mean, you talk about like market controls and how things happen. You have one singular regulatory agency that determines your ability to become a pilot, and they effectively cut out the bottom three rungs of the ladder. So now you have effectively created a scarcity in the marketplace, because where are we going to get pilots? Well, it takes them 3 years, over 3,000 hours to get instrument rated for a $28,000 to $35,000 a year job that has them working 10 to 12-hour shifts. Oh, by the way, just like anything transportation related, you can only work so many hours before they tell you to stop doing what you're doing. Well, how do I do that on a transcontinental flight? Like,
Right.
I mean, so it's an artificial scarcity in the marketplace, prices fluctuate, and then you got stuff like Southwest pulling the plug on flights all over the place. That happened to a buddy of mine.
Wow.
Well, welcome home. So glad to have you here, and so glad to have everyone else soon. We know you're on your way. If you guys want to learn more about the Free State Project, if you're watching from abroad in one of those shithole foreign countries, as we like to call them, the authoritarian 49, as Dennis Pratt calls them, but I'll stick with my Trumpian verbiage. Head on over to fsp.org, learn more about the organization mission, what we're doing, and how you can help and get involved. If you want to plan your visit, fsp.org/visit New Hampshire. You can get in touch with Chris Lopez and get that visit planned. It's going to be a great time. Meet your neighbors. And if you're already here or while you're visiting, check out the calendar for the most jam-packed calendar of events in the world, centered around libertarianism all over the state, every day of the week. You can try to do them all, and you won't. It's a great way to burn out, but it's a great way to have a great time burning out.
I tried it once. It's literally not possible. You're exhausted. You'll get sick. It's not healthy.
Do have two really cool events coming up, though. First and foremost, is it this weekend? We have Ithaca.
It's on Thursday, lunch, noon at the Shell on Thursday. Yep.
So, a screening of a documentary about Julian Assange's trials and tribulations and what his family went through trying to help him. You can go to tinyurl.com/Ithaca, New Hampshire to reserve your tickets. They are free, just limited. So head on over and get your RSVP today. And then, of course, coming up around the corner, PorkFest. Carla, are you excited for PorkFest this year?
I am. I have stuff already. Hold on, I gotta move it there. So this is earring for
Ooh.
Porkfest 20. And yes, I'm very excited. Everyone needs to get their tickets. It's going to be bananas. I was talking to Dennis earlier today. I mean, he threw so many numbers at me. My head was just spinning. So he's making it magic as he always does. So I'm so grateful to him as well.
Well, it's going to be great. Fantastic. So again, head over to porkfest.com right now. Get your tickets if you don't have them. Get your reservations and your campsite, motel, whatever you want, because there's hardly any left, and you're gonna be. I mean, I've done Porkfest in the backseat of my own car before. I don't advise it. If you
and people should be looking at campsites around, hotels around, or Airbnbs or other campsites, and you're just gonna have to drive in and be responsible when you're partying hard.
Yeah, and it'll be a great time and worth every minute. And if you want to support the mission of the Free State Project, head over to fsp.org/give. And remember, the Free State Project is a 501c3 charitable nonprofit. So it's way better to decide where your money goes before Uncle Sam wastes it. That is a tax-deductible donation. And you can support, again, fsp.org/give, one-time or recurring basis. Reach out. Let us know how you want to help. Kevin?
Join the Discord server. Come hang out with me and Brandon over there. That's all we do. It's terrible.
Every day.
Yep, pretty much every day for years and years and years now.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon, for coming on. Everybody for tuning in, watching. Leave some comments below. Let us know what you thought and who else you'd like to see on the show in the future and what topics you'd like to see us cover in the future. And until next time, stay free.
Peace out, guys.
Yeah, I don't believe in destiny. I just do what's best for me. Don't listen to my enemies. They're just full of jealousy. Yeah, this legacy. You gon' see what's left of me. You gon' see success in me. You ain't seen the rest of me. I just wanna be the best at what I know. Better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known. They call me obsessive.